Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special celebration of International Women in Engineering Day. Machine Design is excited to spotlight the contributions of women in engineering and share their inspiring stories this week. I had the pleasure to witness today's guest speak at the MD&M West Conference this past February during a SWE presentation, that is the Society of Women Engineers. Her passion and dedication really stood out to me, and I am excited that she's agreed to bring her insights to you today. Please join me in welcoming Ondine Beaufils from Safran Electronics and Defense.
My background is in aerospace engineering and electrical engineering, and I've had roles in project engineering, system engineering in the past. Again, on different parts of the aircraft. I have notably a lot of experience in the cabin interior, and the cockpit components as well.
All right, so how do you see the role of women evolving in engineering and technology over the coming years?
Unfortunately, we have some challenges with the current government with regards to the E&I initiatives. So I maybe am a little pessimistic on the coming years. I'm optimistic on the longer term, maybe.
Okay,
And obviously, I'm speaking very much with the US mind, which is not representative of the rest of the world.
right.
Um,
Well, you're located in California, so
yes,
yes. Mhm.
right, right. So if people are listening from other countries, they might think I'm crazy, but this is just the US lens. So
It's
I
a
think
current
that
climate for the US, yes.
Right. So I think that, in the coming years, with that in mind, women will need to be key in driving the progress outside of formal DE&I initiatives, because as much as, they can shut down those initiatives, they can't shut down women getting together after work to discuss the issues and challenges that they're facing. They can't shut down that we're still going to do mentoring within one another and with our male allies. They can't shut down networking event. They can't shut down the SWE annual conference. So there's still things that can happen, even if we don't have them as formal DE&I initiatives within our companies or within, government branches. And women are going to have to be the drivers of those and going to have to be behind leading that change. And I hope that with that, that willpower, it will drive enough through the next 4 years so that we can be set up in the future to get back on track with the initiatives that ultimately help businesses' bottom line.
So if there are some young women who want to go into the engineering world, what advice would you give to them if they're considering a career in engineering, other than what you've already laid out? You've already given a ton of great ideas, but I'm thinking specifically of, some of those high school girls or maybe the college women who are attending these SWE conferences. I know there were several in the audience at MD&M West. So what advice would you give to them?
It's a great path to follow, and it's a great degree to get just because it opens so many doors. Getting this degree allows you to work on like super technical stuff or project management or nothing technical at all. First of all, there's so many industries, right? Again, aerospace, automotive, biomedical, civil. I mean, you name it, anywhere that there's stuff, there's going to be engineers. So there's many places to work, many places to make a difference. Sustainable engineering, Um, and there's so many roles. I started as, a system engineer. I worked as a project engineer. Now I'm leading a people's team. There's electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, structural substantiation, materials and process. I mean, there's just so many options of roles that you can never get bored because you will always be able to switch, change, and eventually you'll find something that you really like. So I'd say it's a great option just because there is that diversity. And also, it's much easier to start with engineering and then later switch over to, I don't know, a business project management, sales and marketing role than the other way around. So in doubt, start with the engineering. You can always do the business later. I'm actually back in school, getting my MBA right now.
Oh,
Um, Graduating in 2 months, so we're nearly there.
congratulations. That's
Yeah.
great.
And it's just so much easier to get a business degrees in your 30s, 40s, 50s than an engineering degrees in your 30s, 40s, 50s. So doing the engineering now is, the early on is definitely the right decision. Um, Getting that foundation, working those engineering jobs first, learning corporate world, and then, if you love it, continue. If you want to move on to something else, it'll be much easier to, change to business later on than the other way around. So.
What changes would you like to see? Are there any changes that you would like to see in the engineering industry to support women further?
Well, so on the college part, maybe since we're talking about that, or I guess high school to college, um, I was just reading recently the SWE annual report on women in engineering, and they mentioned two things that I think are interesting to bring here. One is that there are a lot of software that can be used for high school students or others to get an assessment of what their strengths are and kind of stir them in different career directions, which is great. They're fantastic tools. The issue is that those have been programmed by humans, and so they come with biases, and they might stir certain students away from engineering. And so I would be cautious about, taking all the results of those tests like as the Holy Grail. Um, just keeping that in mind. And also for, high school counselors, they're humans as well. So they have unconscious biases. They're not necessarily, consciously pushing students away, but there are some unconscious biases there too that could stir some of the young women in high school to not go to engineering for college. So for the future, I guess I wish that we can address those biases both in programming and in ourselves to have a more uh, diverse influx of student going into engineering. And then once they graduate and they're in the industry, I think that we need to look at how to retain women. We have a lot of young women coming in, but when we get to like the senior technical roles or the senior management roles, it starts to fizzle out a little. So things like, I mean, the big one that I'm seeing a lot is maternity leave. Again, I have a very US view on that because other countries do it differently, but having mandatory paid maternity leave, having support for childcare, normalization of part-time work so that, parents, mothers and fathers can choose to continue their career, but also have time for their families. And also again, on that, senior technical and senior management, ensuring that we have more balance and more parity in advancement and promotion. There are some laws in the European Union as to percentages that need to be met for companies of certain size. And it's successful. The companies are able to meet those percentages, and it ultimately helps again the bottom line of the companies. So seeing more things like that that will drive the companies to have certain actions, I think would be nice in the future so that we can basically start removing those biases because we'll see more women in engineering, in senior roles, in management, and so forth.
What are your hopes for future generations of women in engineering on this International Women in Engineering Day?
Again, the biases I think is a hope that, in the future we can address them in at the core of our societies. And we've talked, it is, International Women in Engineering Day, so it is women focused, but I do want to say that everything applies to all minorities, so not just women. Um, we have so little Black women in engineering, so that's also something that I want to point out. It's not just, we're not only talking about women, it's really all minorities, LGBTQIA as well. And it's also an opportunity to look at these issues, not just for engineering, but in other fields. I'm thinking, for example, nursing. There is a bias that the nurse is a woman, and men should not have to deal with this bias either in as nurses. So it's these are challenges that we're seeing for women in engineering, but I say these are similar challenges for other minorities and in other fields as well. So I'm hoping that by adopting some of the uh, you know, doing some of the activities and adopting some of the measures we talked about, it can help get more representation, change habits, remove those biases, and ultimately help a broader population than just women in engineering.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I totally wholeheartedly agree with you on all points.